When I, 26, was 20 years old, my mum and dad had a 1-year-old son, Eddie. They were struggling in their marriage and had been for years. They thought having another baby would magically fix things, but they were wrong, as it just caused more problems and strained their finances. They were in over their heads and decided go give Eddie up for adoption. I begged them not to, but they had made up their minds. Social workers asked other family members if anyone would like to take Eddie. Both my older brothers refused, and my grandparents were too old, so I took my brother in. This royally annoyed my parents and I was threatened with disownment, but I didn't care as I already had a place of my own with an ex at that time. My folks lost their paternal rights, and I legally adopted my brother, and I love him so much and was proud to be his daddy. My brothers didn't approve of me adopting him, but I didn't care as they had never met him even when he was still with my parents. My grandparents helped me out a lot and were great. Unfortunately, they have both passed since then and left me what money they had left to raise my bro. My folks and siblings were pissed, but my aunt and uncles didn't care and thought it was best. At family events over the years, my folks would be uncomfortable when I'd show up with Eddie, but within the last year they had seemed to warm up a tad, and I figured they themselves wanted to act more like grandparents as he is legally my son. During the last few months, however, I've noticed my parents and brothers try and talk to Eddie on their own about if he knows who his mummy and daddy is. He says I'm daddy, and usually I walk in and scold them before the conversation can go much further than that. I've yet to tell him the truth, and I know I have to one day, but I don't think now is the right time, and even if it was, I should be the one to tell him. The other day I caught my mum trying to talk to Eddie about this again when she was visiting me, Ed, and my current partner. I asked my BF to take Eddie out for a bit where me and my mum got into an argument. She thinks I'm being a terrible parent and that it's time she and my dad take Eddie back. I told her that there is no way I'm letting that happen, so I kicked her out. Now my parents are threatening to sue for custody, and my brothers agree while aunts and uncles say they support me no matter what. So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. He's legally your son. And you're the best for him. I would start reconsidering having your parents over. Also, start considering maybe consulting with professionals, the best way to handle questions he might start to ask within the next few years, either because your parents say something or in general. Not the idiot, but you need to tell Eddie. Ideally would not be the talk, but something that was always known. Does he know he's adopted? He should not hear it from anyone else, and interrupting and scolding will just make him worry. He needs to hear it from you, that you loved him so much you chose to adopt him. That his grandparents, bio parents, love him too. That they are now his grandparents, and that is good. He is your son. I would recommend a good long period of no contact with your parents. During that period you need to tell your son about his adoption. When and if you let parents back in life, it needs to be on the ground rules that they are his grandparents. If they can't accept that, back to no contact. He is your son and you set the rules for his life based on what is best for him. No one else. Background info. We've been living together for 5 years and recently had a baby. He's 4 months old. A few weeks ago we were at a family gathering on a Sunday night and out of nowhere she got blacked out drunk. At the time she was staying home with a baby while I worked 5 days a week from 8-6. She would get up during the night to soothe the baby when he woke up crying or needed to be breathed. She obviously couldn't do that this night, so I was pissed that she didn't talk to me before to set up a plan for care and that I had to stay up with the baby on a Sunday night with work the next day. I asked if we could leave the baby with my parents and pick him up the next day so I could get sleep and function at work, but she refused since we had not done any overnights with our baby yet. I got really pissed off at the whole situation and called her an irresponsible idiot. Yes, I know I am the idiot for not keeping my cool and lashing out like this. I drove home and we didn't say a word to each other. When we got home she almost fell walking up the stairs. Then she took the baby and I urged her to let me take care of the baby that night and told her to sleep it off on the couch. Since she was pissed from what I said earlier, she refused. At this point I was worried about the baby's safety as she could hardly stand on her own, but she refused to give me the baby, saying he's my kid. This triggered me and I told her that I was going to call the cops if she didn't give me the baby, at which point she said, "Go ahead, they always side with the mom," so I did. The cops did not side with her, told her to sleep it off while I rocked the baby to sleep in another room. I felt like crap calling the cops on her, and we've never had a fight like this, but as a new parent this was the only thing I could think of to get our baby out of her hands and into mine, as she was doing this out of spite because of what I said to her in the car. Am I the idiot? You're the idiot. Plenty of people care for babies and go to work full-time jobs in the morning. You could have done it this one time. You were way out of line in calling her an irresponsible idiot. As her partner, you should have got over it, picked up the slack, and then talked to her when she was sober about how the situation can be avoided in the future. You're the idiot. She probably hasn't had anything to drink in a long time, and the alcohol hit her much harder than she thought. Then you called her an idiot, which I'm sure helped things. The cops thought you were an idiot for using them as a therapist. Your relationship is doomed. Good luck. Everyone's the idiot here. You escalated and helped created this situation. First, you should have intervened earlier and slowed down the drinking, offering water. Second, if she was that drunk you should have gotten family involved before you left. Third, the only reason she was trying to care for the baby is because you were whining and guilting her because she asked you to. You've got to take some responsibility here. I have a 15-month-old son and a 4-month-old daughter, preemie, adjusted age is 2 months, and my husband is currently out of the country, due back in 2 weeks. I got a knock on the door 8 days ago, and Mum was standing there with her suitcase, saying she'd be staying with me until my husband gets back. I never asked for this, and we live 4 hours apart normally. When we found out I was pregnant with my son, between gifts and first-time parent panic buying, we got enough baby clothes to last until he was 3 years old, and they're a mix of boy, girl, and neutral. Husband and I learned early on that when dressing a baby, you just reach for whatever is closest, and with 2 kids and no help, I've just kept doing that. I wake up before Mum and go to bed later than Mum, so I do my routine, dress the kids in whatever I come across first regardless of how it looks, and get on with my day. Mum then wakes up, sees my son in clothing that probably isn't designed for boys, and my daughter in clothing that probably isn't designed for girls, and changes them. I've told her there is no need to do this and asked her to stop and said that I'm probably going to have to change their clothing later anyway. All she's doing is creating unnecessary laundry, but Mum says that if she dressed me as a baby then I can trust that she knows what she's doing with my kids. I rolled my eyes at most of this and got on with things. However, she's also told me that I should be making sure I use the right clothes for each baby and even woken my children up while they were sleeping to change them. Waking the babies is considered one of the 7 deadly sins in this house, so the first time she did it, 3 days ago, I told her to never wake the baby for something as stupid as wearing the wrong color ever again. Yesterday I realized my son has a mild ear infection. He gets them all the time, and I'm treating it, and it means he has trouble sleeping, so I was up all night with him and was able to put him down for a nap around 5 hours ago, 1 p.m.-ish, at which point I went for a nap of my own because both kids were sleeping and again, up all night. About 3 p.m. I hear him crying, followed by my daughter, who woke up from him crying, and see Mum is changing him again because he was wearing pink. I nearly burst into tears and just told Mum to pack her bags and go home. She initially refused, but I said she offered to help me, and she clearly isn't helping, so please just go home and let me take care of my kids. She left. She's just gotten home and I'm getting phone calls from Mum and Dad saying I overreacted and Mum was just trying to help. They want an apology. I turned off my mobile and unplugged the landline. Told my husband, who said he understood but also couldn't believe I kicked her out without warning, and said that while she was annoying, having her could really help me, though he is supportive of my choice. I think I might be the idiot because I'd never warned her that this was a potential consequence. Her intentions were good, in her own way, and she hates driving after dark, and it was getting dark as she was heading home. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your mum was behaving very irrationally, and frankly I think she's maybe transphobic. I mean, if it bothers her so much that a boy is in pink that she wake a child up from sleep, it clearly says the whole dressing isn't sitting right with her. The additional laundry isn't helping either. She is the classic "I'm your mom, so I definitely know better than you." I feel you did the right thing. And considering the fact that you must be experiencing postpartum depression, a person adding to mental health strains is far from ideal. You should never disrupt a child's sleeping. It can cause them to act out later on. Children don't care what they are wearing or if they are even dressed. I would have done the same thing if I stayed up all night with my 2-year-old just to have someone wake them up cause they don't like their clothes. She showed up on your doorstep, uninvited to help and worried about the color of your kids' clothes. The fact you have 2 under 2, 1 a preemie, and she shows up invited is bad enough, but to the rest is just ridiculous. Waking up a sleeping baby with an ear infection to change his clothes, no words. No wonder you started to cry and asked her to leave. I would have jazzed her out like my hair was on fire. I'm the third of 4 siblings and I had a pretty horrible relationship with my parents. Dad openly disliked me from day one because he believed that I was the result of an affair Mum had. She admits to the affair happening, but denies the other guy is my father. Mum resented me because she blamed me for the problems that belief caused between her and Dad. Neither of them were particularly subtle about their disdain towards me, and I very much felt excluded, like the black sheep of the family my entire childhood. Things took a real nosedive when I was a teenager. Dad developed a drinking problem and he was a very verbally nasty drunk. I usually took the brunt of the emotional abuse he'd hurl out. On occasion he'd go for one of the other siblings and they could turn to Mum for comfort and they'd get it. When I went to her after he'd been horrible to me, she'd ask what I'd done to upset him, explain why I deserved it or just straight up ignore me. Dad officially disowned me as his son when I came out as gay at 16 and Mum stood by him. I moved out on my 18th birthday and went as low contact as possible. Despite him being the one to disown me first, Dad didn't take kindly to being cut off and did his damnedest to cause trouble for me afterwards. This includes, but is not limited to, him ruining one of my first real relationships by feeding my ex-boyfriend malicious lies, causing so much drama at my former workplace that I got fired and showing up to my wedding reception 4 years ago, despite not being invited, causing a scene and ruining the day. Mum, again, stood by him and took his side through all of this. Dad died of pancreatic cancer 2.5 years ago, and Mum died of diabetes-related complications earlier this year. I didn't shed any tears or go to either funeral because both of them made my life hell. Next week would have been their Ruby wedding anniversary. My siblings are arranging a celebration in their honor and asked me to come. I said absolutely not. When prodded for an answer as to why, I said that I don't care that they're dead, so why would I go to a memorial? My siblings are now chastising me that that's a horrible thing to say and they were still my parents no matter what and I'm being childish and refusing to let go of the past. Are they right? Am I being an idiot? Not the idiot. Why pretend the relationship with them was anything other than what it was? Do your siblings truly understand everything they put you through? It could be they see everything from your parents' side because they don't know or understand yours. Maybe a talk with them about why you feel this way might help them understand your view. Not the idiot. I don't think they can wrap their minds around just how damaging your relationship was because they had the same parents, but the same things didn't happen to them. That's a pretty common thing when one sibling is treated much worse than the others. Also, I think your parents revoked their right to get anything from you when they chose to disown you. So your siblings were aware of how horrible your parents were to you, including being at your wedding when your horrible donor crashed and ruined it, and they expect you to play happy family with them. Not the idiot. Easy for them to act all righteous about families when it wasn't them receiving the brunt of the abuse. You're not being an idiot. You're protecting your mental health and choosing not to be a hypocrite. I can't stand your parents either. My brother is 45 years old and he and his wife have an almost 2-year-old. They are only going to have one child because of their age, but also because my sister-in-law had a ton of anxiety around being pregnant, how she was going to lose her baby weight etc. The issue now is that my bro and sister-in-law seem to be really overprotective of their daughter. She bumps her head really lightly and they are all over the baby. Are you okay? Multiple times. Like I'm talking not a hard bump at all, just a bit against the wall when picking up a toy. Kid doesn't even notice. Also, they don't enforce any discipline at all for anything. When they visit my parents for dinner, she takes handfuls of food and throws it on the ground. The parents don't say anything and keep eating. I know that kids play with their food, but aren't you supposed to teach your kids manners when at other people's houses? The last straw was yesterday at my parents' place. My dad was playing with her and holding her hands when she stepped onto a step and jumped off. Both my brother and sister-in-law started screaming at him that he should be holding her by the chest when she jumps off, not by the hands. God forbid, she falls and twists her arms if she lands in an awkward position. This step was about 8 inches high. I took my brother aside and said, "What the hell? Don't talk to our dad that way, this isn't his first rodeo raising kids, there are 4 of us kids and multiple other grandchildren." Then I said that children are very resilient and that she wasn't in any danger of twisting her arms at all. He got mad and said she's not my kid and he's raising her how they want to. I then called him a helicopter parent in the making and that he's going to create a child that is anxious and dependent if they are always concerned about protecting their daughter from every little thing. He's now mad at me and refuses to talk to me. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. This kindergarten teacher thanks you for trying to stick up for that poor kiddo. They are not doing her any favors. If their weird ways continue, they're going to end up being that family that every teacher dreads dealing with because the kid is an enabled tattling hypochondriac and the parents are a continual pain in the butt. No idiots here. You're a better parent before you have kids than when you actually are one. It's easy to point out other parents' shortcomings when you're not the one doing it day in and day out. You're not an idiot, but it's not really your place to be criticizing them as she isn't your child. They're doing what they feel is best. They don't have to like or allow the way your dad plays just because he's had other children. You're the idiot. The kid is 1 year old, not 7. 1-year-olds need to be watched over constantly. You shouldn't lift a toddler by the hands in the way you described. That's how shoulders get dislocated. Also, you call them helicopter parents while simultaneously criticizing them for not stopping their kid from throwing food. They are first-time parents and this toddler is their only child. There is nothing wrong with them being cautious about that baby being injured. You're not the idiot, but frankly you did pick the wrong thing to speak up about. While I don't think your dad deserved to be yelled at, the premise of what they were talking about isn't wrong. Toddler arms are pretty easy to injure. If you wanted to address their parenting choices, you should have picked something like the food throwing. They probably still wouldn't have taken it well, but you would have had more of a leg to stand on. Also, if your dad has a problem with the way they addressed him, he should have been the one to bring it up.